Now, the moment you've all been waiting for. It is my honor to introduce today's keynote speaker, a woman who has dedicated her life to championing the cause of human rights. As a child in Louisiana in the 1960s, Donna Brazile watched the impact of the passage of the Civil Rights and Voting Rights Acts, how that created a climate of hope in her neighborhood. She heard the adults around her talk about Dr. King, and when he was coming to her town, handed out leaflets publicizing his speech. She read materials about civil rights that her classmates brought from home, even though her parents did not appreciate her thinking about getting involved with the movement. But then, of course, on April 4th, 1968, she learned, as everyone did, of the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. His death changed her life. She decided that she could no longer simply watch. She had to get involved. She traveled to the next block from her house at age 8 and signed up officially as an activist. Her political work began the following year by helping with voter registration and progressed to supporting a city council candidate who promised to open a playground near her home. She joined with Coretta Scott King to help make Dr. King's birthday a national holiday. And in 1976, she worked on her first ever presidential campaign, an omen of many things to come. That, of course, was on behalf of the Carter-Mondale ticket. By the year 2000, she was leading Al Gore's electoral efforts. She was, in fact, the first African-American woman ever to manage a national presidential campaign. Today, she is known to many of us from her work on television. She's a political strategist, a commentator, an adjunct professor, vice chair of voter registration and participation for the Democratic National Committee. On the day that President Obama was inaugurated, she wrote, "What our founders envisioned, what President Lincoln and the Reverend King fought and died for, we are finally perhaps ready to achieve. This is a remarkable moment. Though not the apex we need to reach, it is still a mountaintop, alive with possibilities, a dream no longer deferred." Now, 1 year later, she is here to tell us more about the challenges and opportunities that await our nation as it advances civil rights in the years ahead. Donna Brazile.
Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you so much. Thank you. Well, Madam President, I like saying that.
I like hearing it.
Amen. If you believe it, you can achieve it. And we will one day, be able to say that as a nation. Madam President, members of the faculty, the administrators, the student body, this wonderful community here in Cleveland, thank you for inviting me to your beautiful campus. It is indeed a great honor to return to Cuyahoga County, to the city of Cleveland, a city that inspires hope. And of course, it's a great honor to be here on the day that President Obama is also in your region. I have to tell you, I don't like to circle around any airport or in the sky when there is thick clouds you can't see, and you have to really rely on your faith. But I knew that President Obama was on his way, and had I gotten up just about an hour before 6 a.m. this morning, I could have caught a ride, I'm sure. But he is in the next county over at Lorraine, I believe. He's at a community college, I believe. And he just stopped at a restaurant called Smitty in is it El Raya? El Ria, yeah, he's there at Smitty. He ordered a bowl of chili and a hamburger because I made them apologize to me for running late and causing me to come here at 12:40 instead of 12:20. So and he's picking up the meal for a man who turned 42, and he was able to kiss a baby. Now, I'm giving you live reports from the President of the United States. And let me add one other point, that he intends today to remind our fellow citizens that hope is not lost, that the dream shall never die. Though we might have lost a race, or I should clarify that, though the Democrats may have lost a seat in the United States Senate, I can tell you as an American, we lost a seat, but we did not lose our faith. We're going to continue as we must to fight for health care. Some people read polls and decide where they stand. Some people hire consultants and they often tell them how to feel. But for me, health care is not about reading a poll or listening to consultants or pundits. It's really personal. It's about being a child who grew up in the segregated Deep South with two working poor parents who provided everything they could for their kids. My mother was a great woman. She died at the age of 52. When we were little kids, she would call us in order of our birth: Cheryl, Sheila, Donna, Tater, Chet, Lisa, Dimitri, Kevin, and Ziola. And Jean, as we call her, because my grandmother, who actually technically was raising us, as you all know, it takes a village, and it took a whole village for us, an entire village. My grandmother, we call her Grandma. My mother's mother, we call her Mama. But Jean was one of those remarkable women. And as I mentioned, she worked every day. But one day, in 1988, my dad had fallen sick with prostate cancer. My dad was hospitalized at the VA hospital because he was a veteran of the Korean War. He had health care. But a few months later, my dad was getting back on his feet, ready to go back to work. My mom, who had to take over the daily chores of making ends meet, she fell sick. But unlike my father, who could go to the VA hospital, my mother had no place to go. She went to the doctor and she said, "I don't feel good." And the doctor said, "Well, I don't know. You really need more exams. You need x-rays." And I don't do that. You know how a little corner doctor, you know how they treated people down south. Normally they gave you a castor oil and aspirin and told you to go home and sleep it off, you'll feel better. But this was not something that could be cured with just taking a teaspoon, a tablespoon of castor oil. My mother really needed to go and see a specialist or a doctor. But she couldn't afford to. She knew that every dime she spent on health care was a dime that was probably going toward taking care of my brothers and sisters, feeding us, putting us through school. And so a week later, my mother was rushed to the hospital. She went on a Thursday and she died on Saturday. My friends, no American should have to die simply because they cannot afford health insurance. Whether it's your mom, your dad, your brothers, your sisters, your cousin, your family, this is not about Poland. We're all afraid of the future. We don't know what's going to happen, but we have to draw upon our faith. It's my faith that we will pass health care, that some child will be able to grow up and see his or her parents as they get older, to have a little gumbo with them, to wait for the Mardi Gras, because they could see a doctor, get a test. My mother could have been treated for emphysema. She could have lived, and she could have seen me run my mouth on CNN. And speaking of my childhood, when I was a little girl, I loved school. I still do, that's why I teach. I'm on campuses 2-3 days a week, and I enjoyed my civic classes. I don't know if you all remember those days. I'm 50 now, so I'm telling my age. But Mr. Marchand was my 5th grade teacher, and he was a wonderful teacher because he inspired hope in me. And I'll never forget one project we had during my 5th year in school. It was a lesson for a lifetime, but we had to compete. We had to compete for knowledge and information about all 50 states. I knew every state capital. I raised my hand all the time. That's why my mother used to call me tape recorder and say, "Shut up, Donna, shut up." Couldn't help myself. I had 9 kids, so I had to keep talking. And Mr. Marchand, in this class, we competed for the prize of Miss USA. I won the contest to become Miss Ohio. So my friends, every time I come to this wonderful state, I feel like my prize is being handed to me all over again. I'm Miss Buckeye, and you inspire me too. But when I'm in this city, I'm also inspired by people that I have known, people who have been part of my life. Reverend Otis Moss. Reverend Moss, when I was younger, working on the bill to make Dr. King's birthday a holiday. Coretta Scott King, who I worked for, often said, "Call Reverend Otis Moss." She kept in touch with him. And when I went to work as an intern on Capitol Hill for Walter Funtroy, for Gillis Long, they would often tell me, call Louis Stokes. And my friends, this is a place where, in the past 10 years of my life, I could call on someone else, Stephanie Tubbs Jones. I wear a button that many of us put on our chest for weeks and weeks and weeks. I just removed her number from my cell phone. She was the People's Congresswoman. She represented you, but she was our friend. She was, in the words of the poet Maya Angelou, a phenomenal woman. A woman with the spirit of Harriet Tubman, the strength of Sojourner Truth, the energy and determination of Ida B. Wells, and the courage of Rosa Parks. She was a fighter. And yet she could keep it real. When I went to the airport this morning, I was in Baltimore, and I remember the last time we were together, we stopped at a jewelry store to see if we could buy some dangling earrings. I told the man I'll be back. They are expensive now. I said, Lord, they were $50. Stephanie and I got 2 pair. I said, what's going on? He said, they're real silver. I said, oh. But she had a smile that was infectious. She could give the caucus, the entire Democratic caucus, a pep talk when they felt down, when they couldn't find their focus. She was a proud daughter of this wonderful city. She represented you well. She leaves behind a beautiful son, Mervyn. She loved this school, this university, and all that it gave to her. And she leaves a legacy that many of you must continue to build upon. And Marcia Fudge is doing a wonderful job keeping her spirit alive in Washington, D.C. Now, I know you all probably have heard this, but this resonates so well with me. And so let me once again remind you of something we all heard over the last 2 years. It goes like this. It is said that Rosa Parks sat down so Martin Luther King could walk. Martin Luther King walked so Barack Obama could run. And Barack Obama ran so our children could fly. So let us become the generation that actually soar. Let us become the generation that keeps fighting so Rosa and Martin will all be pleased at our achievements. This has been truly a remarkable period of history, a remarkable period from which to look back and also to begin to look forward. We did vote for change in 2008, change that we believed in, change that we should continue to believe in. We should continue to march and believe that we can make America what it ought to be. President Obama should not leave this state this afternoon. He should actually stay here. Michelle, Maya, Sasha, they can come over the weekend for lunch, go to church, bring Bo if needed. But he should sit here until America focuses on the true nature of our problems. He shouldn't run from Washington. He should stand in Washington, but he can't stand in Washington and support the goals of freedom and jobs and equality unless he sits somewhere and listens to the people and understands that he's fighting for you. He's not fighting just to be in the White House. He's fighting to change America. This is a moment not for us to retreat, because Dr. King would never have retreated. Dr. King would have urged President Obama to continue to believe in the change he promised and to continue to inspire hope in all of its people here in America. Today, you're here to celebrate the end of a truly amazing week. In celebrating this wonderful prophet, hero, someone who inspired me as a little girl. Madam President, I got a whipping too, so you need to put that at the end of that other story. As soon as I got home, my mother said, "Where were you?" I said, "I went to the church. I signed up, and I got punished." It was my baptism. And I wore those scars with honor. Told my sisters and brothers, look, I got whipped for this. And I still whip people up and believing in Dr. King's dream. But Dr. King would not want us to just recall his dream. Dr. King would want us to start living his dream. He would not want us to spend every January reciting his words, his prose, his sermons. He would tell us to spend every January, as we did for many years, marching, coming together, working to make America what it ought to be. On the night before he was taken from us, Dr. King had spent his day with garbage workers in the city of Memphis. It was Thursday, April 4th, that an assassin bullet took him from us. But on that night, when he gave us his final thoughts and words, it bears repeating what Dr. King said. He said, "We face some difficult days ahead, but it doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop. He's allowed me to go up to the mountain, and I've looked over, and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you," he said, "but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land." Dr. King was not referring to just black people. Dr. King didn't have a single focus. He had a universal focus. Dr. King was referring to all of us, everybody, because he saw the promised land. He knew that we would one day arrive at a mountaintop moment and would be able as a country, as a universe, as a planet, to see the promised land together. And had he lived long enough, had he been able to live to see this day, celebrating his 81st birthday, Dr. King would have just celebrated all of the achievements we have witnessed, we have seen. There's no question he would have celebrated the election of Barack Obama and the First Lady of the United States, Mrs. Obama. He would have celebrated the fact that the majority whip of the United States House of Representatives is a black man from the state of South Carolina, James Clyburn. He would have been proud to know that finally, in the House of Representatives, which is, by the way, managed by a woman, Nancy Pelosi, and she's tough. She wears Prada, too. If I could stand up with those heels, I would be marching, too. But he would be proud to know that the House Homeland Security Committee was chaired by a man from the state of Mississippi, Benny Thompson, and that the House Judiciary Committee was chaired by a man from the state of Michigan, John Conyers, and that the House Government Affairs Committee chaired by a man by the name of Ed Towns from New York, and yes, the House Ways and Means Committee chaired by a man, another man from New York, Charlie Rangel. He would be proud to know that there was a woman now heading the Environmental Protection Agency, a woman heading the Environmental Protection Agency. Those of us who live near the swamps know all about dirty water. So proud that my homegirl, Lisa Jackson, chairs the Environmental Protection Agency. And yes, he would be proud to know that we had a woman in charge of diplomacy, Hillary Clinton. She's tough, too. And later this year, she's going to make an announcement along with former President Bill Clinton that you all will like in honor of my dear friend, but I can't give out secrets. He would be proud that Eric Holder was in charge of the Department of Justice as Attorney General of the United States. Can you imagine? Eric Holder would get Dr. King out of jail. And yes, we have two African Americans as governors, Governor Patterson, Governor Wilder. We have women as governors in wonderful states across this country. We have women and men, blacks and whites, Hispanics, Asian Americans, openly gay and lesbian Americans serving in all capacities across this country. We even had a black man to win the Super Bowl as coach. Go Saints this weekend. I'm for the Saints. Sorry, I had to tell y'all that. He'd be proud of Tiger Woods and prayed with him. Tiger needs a prayer. Be proud of Serena and Venus. He would be so proud that in his lifetime he had seen so much. But he would not grow complacent. He would not grow weary. And Dr. King would remind us every day that weeping may endure for a night, but joy will cometh in the morning. Dr. King would not be paralyzed by fear. He would keep his eyes on the prize and keep his dream alive and build on it, fight for it. Because he was a drum major for justice, peace, and freedom, not only here, but across our universe. Dr. King believed that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Dr. King would never have grown tired or weary defending the poor and fighting for them. Had he lived, my hometown of New Orleans would not have sunk so deep into despair. He would have told our leaders to go and get them, from the flood waters, go and get them off their roofs. He would have stayed in New Orleans until those levees were restored and the houses was rebuilt and the jazz musicians back blowing their trumpets and the chefs stirring up mouth-watering gumbo and jambalaya. Dr. King would have not sat back and waited for the Army, the Navy, and personnel to go to Haiti. He would have marched and spoken out until every child and woman and man would have been found out of that rubble. Dr. King would not have just let Anderson Cooper and Sanjay Gupta go and find him. He would have went. He would have told them to go and get him and bring him medicine. Dr. King would never have waited. Never have waited. He would have continued to march. He would never wait for polls to say move. He would have moved the polls and moved the pundits and moved the politicians because he was not afraid. He was not afraid. He would have made sure that Anderson knew, as I did the other night, they're not dumping bodies in the ground. They're not throwing corpses away. That's somebody's mama, Anderson. That's somebody's daddy. Don't say it that way, Anderson. Now, you're my boo, Anderson, but that's somebody's child being buried. Give him a proper burial, Anderson. If you can just say, thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. They can't see their child being buried. They don't know their mama in that grave. But Anderson, just say thank you. Yes, my friends, Dr. King would have continued his march. He would never have forsaken anybody just simply because they had no money. They had no clout, no lobbyists. Dr. King would not have feared Rush Limbaugh. He would not have feared Glenn Beck, Pat Robertson, the Teabaggers. Dr. King would not fear any man or woman or any movement that was not about love. Dr. King would have told us not to hate them either, but to believe in the most powerful weapon in the universe. It's not a nuclear bomb, it's love. Love. Dr. King believed in love. In its words, I read this book every night because it's the only way I can go on TV without using some choice words. And it was the hardest thing. You know, in politics, and those of you who are politicians, we got a couple politicians in here. I can tell because I know how you politicians look up. Preachers look down and pray, but politicians are always looking up. But let me tell you something. It's hard to love your enemies. Trust me, trust me. Whoa, that takes some water for me to say it even like this. But Dr. King is absolutely right. I've learned it the hard way. I've learned it the hard way. It's found in the book of Matthew, chapter 5, verse 43 to 48. Read it. Love your enemies. Bless them that curse you. Do good to them that hate you. And pray for them which despise you, persecute you. Dr. King said the best way to love your enemy is to forgive them. I forgave Trent Lott when he said that he wished his friend would have been elected so segregation would have been living on and on and on. And I forgave Harry Reid when he said that a lighter-skinned Negro dialect, I forgive them all. I forgive all that's been said and done. Doesn't mean that I'm going to become like them. You love them. If you keep your love, you have your joy. If you have your joy, you have your victory, and you can always march when you are victorious. Dr. King would have questioned those who simply want President Obama to fail. He would not have said anything else but, please, friends, come together. I voted for Al Gore. I worked for Al Gore. I loved Al Gore. Still keep in touch with Al Gore, with all those little tools that he invented when he created the internet. Facebook, Twitter, MySpace, Al Gore invented all of that. Give him credit and give him some love. But I looked during the years that George Bush occupied the White House. I looked for ways to show my support because I'm an American. And it was hard. But I found the strength after 9/11 to call the White House on September 13th and say, Mr. President, I'm not scared. I'll be there for you. I called him again, not during his decision to invade Iraq, or his decision to give tax cuts to the wealthy. Those are not the kind of decisions I would have applauded, but I called him in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. I had to make a decision. It's easy to vent your frustration. The horror of all of it, my worst nightmare. Where in God's name did this storm come from? Where's my dad? Where's my brothers? Where are my sisters, my nieces, my nephews, my uncles and aunts and cousins, my childhood friends, my schoolmates? Where's my family? I was a mess. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't bathe, I couldn't shower, I couldn't comb my hair. Because I knew they couldn't eat, they couldn't sleep, they couldn't comb their hair, they couldn't shower. And I prayed to every living saint that I had been raised to believe in, said novenas 24/7. And finally, after a week of despair, I called upon the White House once more and I said, you need a translator. It was clear to me that FEMA stood for Federal Employees Missing in Action. And it was even clearer to those living there that nobody might come to get them. I had promised my sister that I would come to get her. You see, when we were kids, because we lacked health care, my sister Sheila had a brain tumor. And my mother took her to the only hospital that ever allowed poor people to come through its doors, Charity. I was born there. My mom was born there, and she died there. Sheila was operated on at Charity. They found the tumor. Thank God it wasn't malignant, it was benign. But they took more than just a tumor out. Though she's older than I am, Sheila will always remain a 12-year-old girl. And so she's my sister. I told her to fill up her bathtub with water, to keep candles and some food. And I told her somebody would come and get her. My sister couldn't leave. My daddy would not leave his house. He lived a block away. She was in an assisted living facility. My sister wouldn't leave my dad, and now you see the chain. We don't leave people. We stick together, we Brazils. We like red beans and rice. We stick together. And so, my friends, I called. I reminded them that there were still people stuck there, left behind, being my best diplomatic self. I was actually going crazy. And they said, did you fill out the papers? Yes. Did you go online? Yes. Did you file with the Red Cross? Yes. The International Red Cross? Yes. I did everything I was told to do. I told them I had also called Bill Cosby, Bill Clinton, Al Gore, Al Sharpton, who I knew had a wetsuit somewhere, Jesse Jackson, Oprah Winfrey. Come on, yes, I did it all. What else can I do? And when they said, well, it's not a priority. We're going to get the people out of the Superdome, away from the convention center, and then we're going to go into the nursing homes and the assisted living facilities. Well, you can imagine I went crazy. I went crazier, I should say. I didn't go ballistic, I went crazy. I know there's another level, because I hit that level before you get to the next level. I didn't go postal. I said, okay. I have called the White House, I've called all my friends. I have a very extensive Rolodex, so you can imagine that. I laid on my couch and I did another prayer. My neighbor came over, tried to get me to eat. I said, I can't eat. And I said, but I know what I can do. I called Wolf Blitzer. I said, Wolf, I need to come on the show tomorrow. That entire week, I was called by NPR and CNN and ABC, all the people I work for. My great friend, the late Tim Russert, he was on TV. Donna's family, we gotta help. James Carville, my brother. Donna, nah, I wouldn't go out there. I said, no, it's too personal, y'all. Y'all don't know. I ain't going out there just to blast George Bush. Nah, I'm gonna get my sister. The next day, I gave out her address, 3933 Tulane Avenue, the YWCA Assisted Living Facility. They're on the corner of Tulane and Jefferson Davis Parkway. My dad lived on Jefferson Davis. It's the next block. Somebody heard me on TV, which is why I keep talking on TV. Somebody hears you. Only takes one person. I don't care. One person. Well, Miss Elnora called her son, Eddie. Just so happened that Eddie worked for the Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries. Eddie, listening to his mama, went over to Tulane and Jeff Davis and called his mama and said, I called up, there was 12 feet of water. And I said, Sheila here. And she said, I'm here. And there are 6 others. Everybody else is dead. They drowned. Sheila lived. Eddie Rodriguez saved her life. And my sister is in Baton Rouge today. I tell this story. I tell this story because this is what it means to be an American. I did call George W. Bush back, and I went on to work with the White House to forge a bond because I agreed to help him. I went down to Louisiana every week of my life for 3 years serving on the Louisiana Recovery Authority. Called up George Bush almost every week and say, I need some more help. We would talk about the levees or the roads. We had little symbols. And I said, I know you're going to put 2, we need 3. And I was speaking in billions. And I got to know George Bush, the person. I didn't demonize George Bush. I didn't want George Bush to fail. I wanted George Bush to succeed in helping us rebuild. And before he left the White House, I went over to talk to him. On January 8th, the day after he had spoken with Obama, right there in the Oval Office, I'm sitting there, and we're talking about New Orleans. I'm saying, we're going to keep this fight going, right, Mr. President? You might be retiring, but you know you can still work. You're only 60. I turned 50, and he sent me a little nice card saying, Donna, it's just a number. Remember what you told me? Just a number. And now he's going to help in Haiti. And I called him on Sunday and said, thank you. Now get on down there and help. God uses all of us, and Dr. King would have done the same thing. He would have went into the White House and said, we need help. In closing, my friends, because I want time to take your questions and hear from you, I just want to say that Dr. King called us to conscience. He lived for this moment, and he would have told us to never, ever become complacent. With rising foreclosures, chronic joblessness, kids dropping out of school before graduating, children living in poverty, broken down dysfunctional families, Dr. King would have marched and marched until we would have seen better times. He would have also marched against the war in Iraq and urged the president to bring our troops home sooner rather than later from Afghanistan. He would have urged Muslims all over the world to retake their religion from the evils of bin Laden and al-Qaeda, because the Prophet Muhammad drew his strength and inspiration from the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God of our fathers. Dr. King inspired me as a little girl, but he still inspires me as a woman who simply wants to believe that his dream was so key to my life and the life of other young kids of my generation. I believe in his vision of a promised land. I still believe in his life work, his call to justice, his call for change. So hold on, my friends, hold on. Do not grow weary in doing good. We'll reap that harvest, as the Bible reminds us, if we don't give up if we keep holding on, if we keep marching, if we keep believing that that dream wasn't just something he believed and he saw, but something that we can all build upon. I'm going to hold on, as the song goes, for a little longer. I'm going to hold on until everything is all right. My friends, if we hold on, everything will be all right. If we keep the faith, everything will be all right. If we believe in one another and believe that Dr. King lived so that we could seize this moment, everything will be all right. Thank you, and God bless you, and hold on, my friends. Thank you. Thank you.
We have time for 2 questions, but I promise you there will be an opportunity after this for people to talk with Donna Brazile individually, so that won't be the end, but we will take 2 questions right now.
Yes,
Come on up.
I got my 2 right here. Look at that. Come on up, you 2. Got on the alpha. The color's alpha, huh? That's all right. I know my colors.
Hey, Pa.
I don't step
Good
up,
afternoon.
baby. I'm looking good.
Well, I'll just say just thank you. I know Donna Brazile personally, but she don't know that. I was over her house. I know her Aunt Jean, my Aunt Ziola,
Yes.
is her sister, and I know Gwen and Flint, Floyd and Nat. So I just want
You
to
know
say,
my cousin Patrick, who lives here too.
I just talked to him last night.
Telephone. There you go.
So I want to say just that thank you to Cleveland, and I hope to see you at the reception.
Thank you, sir. And I hope you go to the Mardi Gras. I'm going this year, first time since Katrina.
I'll be down with Ziola.
If you come down, I'm cooking the red beans on Monday.
Thank you so much for coming. I think I speak on behalf of everyone by saying that we too think you're a phenomenal woman.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you.
I heard a talk that you gave last year at Stanford University, and you were talking about how your generation sort of worked hard to get us to the bridge, and it's the responsibility of this generation to carry us over. And so this has me thinking about sort of how do we look beyond the symbolism of the moment into the substantive policy changes that a lot of us long to see. So, I mean, there's a lot of progress that has been made, but there's still a lot of problems in institutional racism, all sorts of things you could talk about that are more difficult to bring to the forefront because we also want to revel in the monumental change that has taken place. So my question is, how do we still keep bringing these serious issues and looking serious issues to the forefront, basically, and make sure that we get some substantive policy out of the symbolic change that has taken place?
Thank you so much. And it was a great honor to be at Stanford last year. I believe it was April 8th. Thank you. Just want to let you know, ginkgo works. Well, you know, I'm a Louisianan. I always mix something else with things I cook with. So, why y'all laughing? That's the secret of long living, okay? When I go home this weekend for the Saints game, I'm making me some okra, corn, butter beans, put some shrimp, succotash, put a little filet in there, a lot of onion and garlic, and let me tell y'all something. If I can't get them Saints over the finish line, nobody can, all right? All right. Now, Dr. King's generation did not see the barriers. They seized the opportunity. It was a time to stand, a time to move the country forward. Your generation is being called to seize the opportunities. There's a long list of problems that we can sit here all day and go through them, and we all know them. We live them. We see them. We hear about them. But if we don't seize the opportunity at this hour to transform this country, whether it's the economy that needs to be updated so that we can compete in a global marketplace, whether it's our educational institutions that must meet the growing demands of a changing world, whether it's our healthcare system that needs to be reformed so that we can also have the modern technology. In every aspect of life, we need people to answer the call. Your generation must figure out how it will answer the call. I can't tell you that you have to go back and do it the way that King's generation or even my generation. Each generation is different. You have your own music, you have your own way of inspiring each other, but you all need to talk among yourselves. That's why I'm a tweet. I like to tweet. I'm trying to stay, right with my students. I want to know exactly what they know so that I can keep going just a little bit faster, and they can keep as long as I have breath in my body, I'm not slowing down, okay? And your generation need to keep up. That baton was passed on to you. Whether you got to notice that you have it in your hand or not, you have it. Now use it, and use it for the glory of God and for His people. Now, I'm a religious person. I'm spiritual. I'm Catholic. I go to church every Sunday. Even if I don't get there, I go to St. Mattress. I've been known to visit bedside Baptists, too. The Bible says pray without ceasing. That's in Thessalonians 6, I believe. If it ain't that one, it's another one. I read the Bible, Ephesians 2. Wickedness in all places. That's why when I go, I say I have to sprinkle a little water. But you have to keep your spirit about you. You're not going to get your energy or your assignment or even your message from your neighbors or your best friend. You're going to get it already within you. Open the envelope and answer the call. Will you serve? Will you act? Will you make a difference? Will you do everything in your power to help alleviate the sickness, the poverty that we have in our land? Or will you just stand by and watch it? No, act. I told you, I got my inspiration at an early age. My call, and I answered my call. Got a whipping, I told you, I got my little whipping now. But I answered my call. Answer your call. Because when you decide that you want to make a difference, that's all God is looking for, is people to answer the call. You will be moved. You'll be surprised when things start happening. You say, because you've answered the call, and then the way will be made, and then you will believe that you can make a way out of no way. And don't let anybody ever tell you what you can't do. I'm living proof that you can come from nowhere and get anywhere. I'm living proof that you can grow up with nothing and now have something. I'm living proof that you can make a difference. So with that, my friend, tell everybody that you heard this 50-year-old woman who looked like a cat on a high tin roof. She's not on Fox because she would compete with the other Foxes. But she's a cable call girl. When she's called, she goes. She speaks truth to power. She picks up the phone. And yes, when she tweets or when she buries, she gets a response because she believes that she can make a difference. That's all you need, and you will go far. Thank you, and God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those inspiring words delivered with great humor and great power. This whole entire week has been a wonderful opportunity to reflect on the life and work of Dr. King and to consider the ways his legacy continues to spur us to seize the opportunities we have today. Before we close, I do want to remind everyone here that we will hold our annual symposium in honor of Congressman Louis Stokes at noon on March 22nd. With us will be Representative Barbara Lee of California, who is chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. I hope you will all be able to join us. So this concludes our formal program. I hope you will all come over to Adelbert Hall. Those of you who are new to our campus, there are many people here to show you where it is, generally that direction. We have a reception. Donna Brazile will be signing copies of her book, which is the story of a remarkable life, and we have the book available for purchase over there. Thank you so much for joining us, and please join us with Donna Brazile in Adelbert Hall.